Man, that last video was a real drag to make, and a bunch of people are probably going to hate my guts. I wish I could talk about something I like for a change. What's going on right now, anyway? That's right, it is! I friggin' love Halloween! I've even got a costume around here somewhere. See? Oh, come on. It's Chip. You know, from Beauty and the Beast. Look, you try coming up with costume ideas when you're cup-shaped and have a handle in the middle of your face. Anyway, that's not important right now. What is important is that this is the best time of year to play some spooky video games. And while I love playing games that wear their spookiness on their sleeves, what's even more exciting is getting freaked out by a game that's not supposed to be scary, because that's when you're least expecting it. A couple years ago, I did a video on surreal scary moments from non-horror games. But honestly, a game doesn't have to be surreal to give you a good scare. So this Halloween, I'm going to be covering some more straightforward scary moments from a few of my favorite childhood games. One thing you should know before we start, though, is that with this list, I'm sticking to games that were made in 1996 or before. Why? Well, 1996 was a crucial turning point in the history of gaming. This was the first time that 3D games hit the mainstream in a big way, with titles like Super Mario 64, Tomb Raider, and especially Resident Evil, which, although I doubt anybody would call it the smartest game ever made, is definitely one of the scariest. The late 90s raised the bar for the kinds of scares that you could expect from a video game. Before 1996, we had cartoony horror titles like Castlevania, Ghosts and Goblins, and even Doom. After 1996, we saw the likes of Silent Hill, Condemned Criminal Origins, and System Shock 2. And with the coming of fully rendered 3D environments, even non-horror games found it much easier to set an atmosphere that gets your heart pounding while you play. I want to keep this list short and sweet, and if I included all the great scary moments from games that have come out since 1996, this video would probably go on for an hour. But there's another reason I want to focus on games made before 1996. Because with all the fantastic games that have come out in the 25 years between then and now, it's easy for gamers to forget about what came before, and I can't let that happen. These skeletons have been buried for long enough. Let's dig them back up, starting with... Allow me to set the scene. It's Christmas, the year 1990, and your parents have just bought you the most amazing video game ever, a game so hyped up that they made a whole movie about it. Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES. Actually, if you were me, it was 1995, and the Super Mario All-Stars version for the SNES. And it was your older sister who got it, and not you, but I digress. So you're playing this fantastic game, and you get halfway through World 2, and all of a sudden you start the level and see this. Huh. Kind of a weird, creepy background detail, but whatever, you've already seen some strange things in this game, move on. But as soon as you start moving on, you notice something. The angry face/sun/thing is moving along with you, which means it's not part of the background, which in Mario terms means it's a bad guy. Or a platform, but no way are you standing on this thing unless you want your feet burned off. And it just stays there, menacingly, for half of the level, until you move past the tornado, which is freaky enough considering you've never seen one of those before either. But then, just when you're starting to get used to it being there, it comes to life and starts chasing you around the screen. Even at this point, you can't stomp on him, so you just have to hightail it to the exit as fast as possible and hope he doesn't hit you, or, which is what usually happens, shoo you into another enemy that ends up hitting you. Super Mario Bros. 3 actually has a lot of these little panic moments. In a way, they're actually the most essential thing that makes the game special. But the Angry Sun is the king of all of them. There aren't a lot of people who don't know about the Angry Sun at this point, but I guarantee you, for anyone who doesn't, this moment is always a shocker. That being said, it's not particularly horrific as far as the whole seemingly innocuous object coming from the top of the screen to end your life thing goes. We can get scarier than this, and we will. The Sonic series has always been really good at establishing a strong atmosphere for its levels, despite being extremely light on story details. Okay, let me rephrase that. For the first 5 years or so, Sonic always was really good at establishing a strong atmosphere despite being light on story details. And up through the release of Sonic and Knuckles, the series kept getting more and more immersive and detailed as it went. With all the diverse themes of the series' various zones, it was practically inevitable that they would eventually do a scary level. And when they did, they really knocked it out of the park. Act 1 of Sandopolis Zone is a pretty straightforward Egyptian-themed desert level, with pyramids in the background and heat shimmer and absolute crap tons of sand everywhere. But Act 2, which starts with Sonic entering a pyramid and getting trapped inside, is a different kettle of fish. Or kettle of snakes, or whatever the desert equivalent of that is. First of all, it starts in the dark, and while this isn't actually a concern for visibility, as we'll soon see, it is a concern. The music is slower, more bass-heavy, and just generally more ominous, even though it's the same basic melody as Act 1. But where the spookiness really gets going is when you hop onto one of the capsules that Sonic normally sees at the end of a level, with his poor little trapped woodland friends inside. But this one doesn't have any cute critters inside, at least not any living ones. Instead, the capsule releases this little white ghost that starts flying around the screen. No big deal, even though he does look pretty peeved for a flying bedsheet. However, as the zone gets darker, you start seeing some changes in this ghostly presence. First, it gets bigger and is joined by a second ghost. Then they get bigger again, and grow giant devil horns, and are joined by a third ghost, and at this point, for the first time, they get aggressive. Sandopolis is a lot of Sonic & Knuckles players' most hated level, and I think a lot of it has to do with how unnerving the second act is. Both acts are quite difficult, actually, but in the second you have to constantly open doors and avoid death traps, while also making sure that these horrible ghosts don't get too out of control. It's scary and stressful at the same time, and while it's not particularly easy on your heart, it does make for a very memorable experience. Honestly, I also really like the design of these guys. They're kind of cute, actually. No, wait, okay, no, they're not cute. Get them out of here. Seriously, I'm not kidding. Turn on a light or something. Hello? Okay, that is not funny. You may remember that the world of Mechanos from Donkey Kong Country 3 made it onto my list of surreal scary moments a few years ago. But if that was a particularly clever and disturbing area, it's only because Donkey Kong Country 2 was so good at being scary the normal way that the third game had to do something crazy to stand out. Really, most of DKC2 is pretty scary when you get right down to it. The overall theme is piratey, but not in a cute, fun way like VeggieTales or something. These are grubby, violent, borderline psycho pirates with hook hands and flying cannonballs and giant killer bees that can kill a rhino just by touching it. Not that the last one is particularly pirate-oriented, but, you know. Gloomy Gulch, the fifth world, goes even harder on the horror themes than other areas. Even the ropes in this world are undead and trying to kill you, not to mention creepy fog and hostile winds and even more bees. Oh my god, when will it end? But on top of all that, we have Haunted Hall, which is undoubtedly the scary level of the scary world in what was already a pretty scary game to begin with. Apart from the music, which shrieks into your face from the very beginning, Haunted Hall starts out like a typical DKC minecart level. However, within a few seconds you pass through a pair of pirate skeleton doors and find yourself right in front of, what else, a pirate skeleton ghost. These guys don't even have the saving grace of being kind of cute, like the ghosts from Sandopolis Zone. They just overlap you with their diaphanous forms and cackle as they wait for the timer above your head to count down so they can kill you. In the game, not in real life. Although as a kid, I'm pretty sure I thought my actual life was in danger during this level. What's really scary about Haunted Hall isn't just the horror aesthetics, it's also the structure. It feels like the level is trying to trick you into messing up so the ghosts can get you. First the timer counts down and you have to avoid the red barrels. Then it's an incredibly short timer and you have to hit green barrels to make it tick back up. Then you have to hit green barrels that are inches away from red barrels that you absolutely cannot hit, but you'd better hit all the green barrels, and whoops, there goes one, I guess you're dead. All in all, it's a pretty big relief when you get past the level, so you can move on to... Oh no. Okay, this game's too scary. Where's Kirby's Epic Yarn? So far, the scary moments we've covered have had a lot to do with gameplay. The angry sun is scary because it can kill you and make you have to restart the level. The ghosts in Sandopolis Zone can kill you and make you restart the level. And the skeletal pirates in Haunted Hall have disturbingly realistic-looking teeth and jawbones that distract you so you fall into a pit by mistake. Oh, also they can kill you. But Myst, the first hit PC game to have fully pre-rendered 3D backgrounds, is a different kind of game. Fast reflexes and mechanical prowess won't help you get to the end of Myst any faster. It's a very slow, quiet, and reflective experience that taxes parts of your brain which most games barely tickle. So naturally, when Myst sets out to scare you, it's a slow and deliberate kind of scare that builds up over the entire game. Early on in Myst, you run across a library that contains a couple of books. Well, duh, it's a library. What I mean is that it has a couple of books out in the open that you're able to interact with, just like the linking books that take you to different ages. But these books don't take you anywhere. They're just filled with red and blue colored static, and next to them are colored pages that correspond to the color of the book. Naturally, since you're playing a video game, your first thought is, use page on book. And when you do, the book reveals something else. Brief glimpses of a human face, and snatches of a human voice urging you to do something. As you go through the rest of the game, you find more of these pages, and if you use them on the books, the faces and voices get clearer and clearer, and you discover that they belong to real people who are trapped in these books, two brothers named Cirrus and Akinar. Both of them tell you that they were unjustly imprisoned and beg you to set them free, while also warning you that the other brother is a liar and a manipulator who's just trying to use you. Myst has very few explicit hints about what your long-term goals are, so you could be forgiven for assuming that the whole point of the game is collecting these pages and eventually figuring out which brother is telling the truth and should be set free. It's not an easy choice. Both of them are telling you that the other one is lying, and they're both kind of off in different ways. Cirrus seems quite composed for a man in his position, but he also comes across as arrogant and cruel, especially when he talks about Akinar. Meanwhile, Akinar is emotional and pleads with you to be let out, but he seems a little insane, especially with all the giggling he does. In fact, the real solution to this conundrum is that both of the brothers are lying psychopaths, but the biggest clue to this is hidden behind one of the most elaborate puzzles in the game. So on a first playthrough, it's likely that you'll make the mistake of using all of the blue or red pages on one of the books, and it's not long afterwards that you see how huge a mistake that is. Whichever one you let out, you end up trapped in the book in his place. Then he laughs in your face, crazily in Akinar's case, and starts slowly, patiently ripping the pages out of your book one by one. As he does this, your own vision becomes blurred and filled with static, just as the page originally looked from the outside, and you realize that you're in exactly the same position that he was at the beginning of the game. There is one important difference, of course. When he was trapped in the book, you came along and let him out. But there's not a ghost chance in Haunted Hall that he'll ever do the same for you. You're stuck in that book. Forever. Let's get one thing out of the way right now, okay? The deep sea is scary as hell. It's the most unfamiliar, most alien, and just plain weirdest environment that exists on Earth. It's no coincidence that the vast majority of gross alien beings invented by science fiction writers bear a striking similarity to sea creatures. They knew what they were doing. Nothing's creepier than the inhabitants of the lightless, fathomless depths of the ocean. Interesting fact. The word abyss, literally meaning bottomless pit in Greek, was used extensively in ancient literature to describe the deep sea, and we all know how important bottomless pits are in video games. Which brings us to Meridia. Just as Gloomy Gulch was the scariest part of an already scary game, Meridia is the most alien part of a game that's filled with bizarre alien landscapes. Super Metroid. I don't have to tell you how atmospheric and deeply absorbing Super Metroid is. This game's atmosphere is the stuff of legends, and in Meridia, all of that atmospheric punch is aimed at one target, freaking you the hell out. The entire region is underwater, and even though you're not likely to travel far into it without the gravity suit, both the visuals and the unusual physics are like a giant neon sign saying, "You don't belong here." The enemies are weird, the rooms are weird, even the Metroids are weird. The whole area is not so much overtly scary as just unnerving and uncomfortable. Meridia is infamous in the Metroid community as a place where newbies get lost for hours and speedrunners lose their momentum. It's like a ship's graveyard full of the sunken confidence of people who thought they had Super Metroid all figured out. Not to mention that it has possibly the grossest and most bizarre boss ever to appear in a Metroid game. Okay, second grossest. Ugh, why does he have to keep showing up in my videos all the time? Oh, come on, that's not even from Metroid. Okay, so technically I'm violating a rule here, because I said this list was going to be about non-surreal scares, and I can't think of anything more surreal than what I'm about to show you. So you're playing Kirby Superstar, and you get to the last subgame, Milky Way Wishes. Fun game. And you make it to the final boss. which you were expecting to be the sun and the moon because that's what the game told you, and anyway, you've already fought the sun and the moon in another Kirby game, so that would make sense. But no, it turns out that you were actually being tricked the whole time, and the sun and moon were actually just confused or something, and the real evil bastard behind it all is this sick freak. Marx is, without a doubt, the sickest, creepiest, most demented megalomaniac in the entire Kirby franchise. He tricked two celestial bodies into attacking each other, nearly destroying an entire planet, just so he could wish for absolute power from a giant magical clock that lives in space. Even before he transforms, this guy is a complete freak show. And afterwards? Sheer insanity are the only two words I can think of to describe the Marx fight from Milky Way Wishes. He pulls out all the stops on his crazy machine. We are dealing with a technicolor-winged, wall-eyed jester with vampire fangs and huge hobnailed boots who attacks you by dropping seeds onto the ground that turn into towering vines covered in iron spikes, covering his body in lightning and firing hundreds of arrows at you, literally barfing out a laser that is so powerful it blows him off the screen and makes the entire world flash yellow, and cutting his own body in half to make a goddamn black hole, which then explodes in your face. And meanwhile, this panic-inducing track is playing in the background. Kirby games have always had this weird undercurrent of cosmic horror, but I don't think this series ever has topped or ever will top this one moment of absolute batshit insanity. It is terrifying, it is weird as hell, and honestly, I love it. But the best part, in my opinion, is that this guy's Japanese name is just Mark. Just an ordinary guy's name from real life. Imagine, like, if you got to the end of Final Fantasy VII and you're in this vortex of white clouds fighting some enormous buff dude with giant angel wings flapping around and a literal halo, and then it turned out the whole time that his name wasn't Sephiroth, it was actually just Dave. Actually, that would be kind of awesome, wouldn't it? So these are just a few of my favorite freaky moments from classic games that I've played. Please note that this list isn't meant to be even close to exhaustive. I haven't played every game there is, and there are even more scary moments that I know about but just couldn't figure out how to describe. Like this one. For future Halloweens, I might be tempted to take a whack at scary moments in games that have come out since Resident Evil turned the whole world upside down. Until then, I'd love for you to share one of your favorite creepy moments from a non-horror game in the comments. Remember, this is Halloween. It's a time for fun and fright, a time to let loose and walk on the wild side, a time to get scared half to death and not care how loud you scream. And whoever you are, and wherever you're from, I hope you have a happy and horrifying Halloween. What do you mean? I like it.